Hello, hello. Welcome to ALD No Limits. I'm Christie.
And I'm Ken. We are two friends, both with ALD. We have the pleasure of having ALD and having ALD affect us in different parts of our life. And this whole concept came, we were in Cambridge at the last ALD Connect annual meeting. We were sipping coffee in the lobby and we were just going back and forth with ALD this, ALD that. And I think it was Christy who said, we should make a podcast. I'm like, yeah, we should. And it got some gumption. I talked with some of the physicians at the bar, and they're like, yeah, you should. So we're doing it. So this is our intro episode. Me and Christy are both going to kind of tell our ALD story just so you can get to know us. And then in upcoming episodes, we are bringing on fellow ALD patients, caregivers, just ALD in general, to get it out there to the people. I participated in the industry advisory panel, and a lot of these new industry people and physicians, they don't quite understand everything. So no limits, it's going out there. This episode should be pretty, but future episodes, we hope to get a little crazy with it. But
I mean, we're already crazy.
We are crazy.
Let's face it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think, our goal is to create a space where every story matters, nobody feels alone, and the journey that we're on just feels a little more possible. I would say, I think you said ALD, it's our pleasure to have ALD or something, Ken. I'm not sure if it's a pleasure, but we hope that we are connecting people in the community, adults in the community, and that you're a little bit entertained as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So I just want to put this out here. I gave Christy for ladies first, and she told me to like first. So I'm not being rude, everybody. But I'm going to go ahead and tell my story. To preface, I am 41. I live in central Pennsylvania. You may have seen me elsewhere on the internet, Ken with AMN. It's on YouTube as well. So a lot of you probably already know who I am. But for those who don't, ALD started when I was a child. Again, I'm the youngest of three brothers. My oldest brother had issues with puberty. He had issues, just like, developing, and they had a lot of other issues as well. And issues where they had no idea what he was going on, but he was going into a shock, basically, and we'll go into that. And they figured out, and again, I didn't know a lot about it because I was a kid, and I don't think many other people did. They ended up giving him steroids, which I believe were hydrocortisone steroids, due to having adrenal insufficiency. So, and at the time, the doctors asked my mom, like, should we put steroids? Do you want your other two sons to have steroids? And I was like, no, they're growing fine. And so when you think steroids again, you think, I'm getting buff, and it worked for him as far as the developing too, but I think it was just due to Addison's and the adrenal. He was having adrenal crises and all that, which, that was a lot. So that's kind of how ALD kind of entered. And at the time, I forgot to throw that in there. We had gotten blood tests to find out, and that it was shown then that we as well had the gene defect. So, but we didn't know. We're fine. And we're fine. Also, at that point, I was most likely also living with Addison's disease, and we lived. We're fine. We're growing fine. So ALD.
And sorry to interrupt, but how old was your brother? You said puberty, I think 12, 13.
I think around 12, 13, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so there was that, and that was it. And then off we go, and life goes on. And pretty much it was life goes on. I'll go ahead and throw up. This was our happy little kind of pre-ALD family. They're my parents and my brother Rod, who's my oldest brother, who was developing the issues. That was his high school graduation. Then look at me down in the front, the dude in the red. And then the guy next to me is my other brother, Derek, who is, well, we'll go into the whole details. But and if you look at him, you can see his complexion, like very dark skin. And we always joked that mom was cheating on dad with the mailman or something. Like, how could this happen? And nobody put two and two together that, okay, this is, that's that. But so life goes on. And then I can't put a year on this, which I wanted to talk to my mom about this, but my uncle, and he was, we'll say he was probably about 36, give or take. He was just acting weird and doing weird things. He would just go on rant. He would just walk down to the end of the road and not know why. And just really weird things like that. And at the time, they could figure it out. I'm fairly certain he went to the doctor and then he did end up in a nursing home because, I think just to kind of keep an eye on him and stuff. And now looking back at it, now how much I know about ALD and AMN, I wish I knew more of his symptoms and stuff. But so he ended up in a nursing home, and he pretty much went down the general projective of ALD. I mean, he started losing, which you lose your vision, all that speech, and he passed away basically in a vegetative state when he was 37. And they pretty much had deemed him early Alzheimer's, which is kind of what they were going with the thinking and which, it's kind of like that. But we do believe, I'm fairly certain his death certificate, I'm not positive I don't think it was ALD, but it was more of the, I think, Addison's disease, I believe. Again, I might be misspeaking there. Mom will correct me when she watches this. But so it's that.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, when your brother was diagnosed and your other brother and you had the blood tests and everything, and you were sort of diagnosed, was it Addison's or was it adrenoleukodystrophy? Was it just, do you remember?
I think it was ALD. I'm fairly certain. Okay. I think again. But
and how old were you?
Goodness, I was swell. My brother was about 5 years older than me, so I was probably 8, 9, maybe, give or take. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I remember when they did it, and they shot this through my veins. It was all cold and stuff. I always remember that. It was kind of, this is kind of fun, but I don't even know what I'm doing here. I don't understand any of this. I'm a kid. So. Yeah,
and sorry to go back, but I'm so sorry about your uncle.
This is what this is about.
So sorry. And do you guys have the monitoring at that point? I mean, this was in the 70s? No, just kidding. This was
90s.
90s, okay. So did you know of specialists? Did you
know
my
brother he had it, I think it was an endocrinologist at a semi-local hospital who, again, I'm fairly sure she's just an endo. That was her, and she was pretty much handling his care for the most part at that point. And, but that's my oldest brother, which we're going to get into next. So, let me go and clean up my stage bag here and remove the happy family back there. So, then we go, I mean, again, I want to put a time period here. I'm going to say, because I was diagnosed about 10 years ago, so 2015. So I'm fairly certain my oldest brother, Rod, he was starting to experience AMN symptoms probably a couple years prior to that. So we're like, okay, and, all right, he's got issues. But I think even at that point, I didn't understand this is AMN because no one ever told us there would be AMN, we're living life. And I mean, at this point, I was already graduated from high school. I lived a normal childhood for the most part. I started working full time, and I'm like, I'm just getting my life going and stuff. And, so that started to go. And, we did put 2 and 2 of even, cerebral ALD, like what could happen, so he had his symptoms, and we'll just like push ahead. I remember he was using a walker, and he was, most of the standard AMN type, aids. And as we get closer to where this was pretty much bumping up to my diagnosis, I was 31. I started noticing these things. I was tripping and falling over things, and nothing was in my way. I was tripping and falling over nothing, and like that right there just kind of hit me. And I went to the doctor, my family doctor, and she got it going and got me to a neurologist, and went down through the whole thing. And again, he was still alive with this, and he had gone with us pretty much to help feed the neurologist about ALD, because I was her only patient. So that was helpful. And then, okay, hold on, let me do my math here. Yeah, that would be about right. So yeah, again, that was about 2015 or so. So yeah, that was that. And I'm diagnosed. I got my diagnosis, and well, I did everything I did. They did all types of testing stuff, which was good. But it was finally, I got a phone call from the neurologist that she wanted me to come in. So I was like, okay. She had finally figured it out at that point. She told me I had ALD, AMN, and literally it was good luck. And that was it. And when I left that doctor's office, and then at that point, I looked back at my uncle now, and that's where I started to put cerebral ALD into. So I think I started to think about it, and I'm like, here I am, and I went down a rabbit hole of, it was depression, and it was irrational thinking on my part. I was doing all the things I did anyway, but I was gambling, I was alcohol, I was doing all those things in the Tim McGraw Live Like You're Dying. I was just doing all that way more than I should. But it continues, but we talked about this in Cambridge. I'm still paying for those times. This is life. But so there we are. I'm diagnosed, go about my day, and my oldest brother, his symptoms started to progress. And he wasn't really getting normal MRIs. I think he got an MRI, but this endocrinologist, she was an endocrinologist. She wasn't even a neurologist. So I just don't think she was following along with the disease and the disease progression. And he was starting to get, its cerebral ALD symptoms were starting to come about. And at this point, him and his fiance, they had already planned a wedding. So they had to get a wedding, they ordered everything. And so here, I'll put up the picture. This was the wedding. At this point, my brother was in a wheelchair. So there's me, there's my other brother. And we did this wedding. We basically did the whole thing like be a wedding. I was still but I pushed him in a wheelchair down the aisle, literally. And he was nonverbal at this point, and I read his vows to his fiance. So I'm kind of married to her, really, at the end of the day.
Oh my goodness.
But it was just but
You're such a good brother, and that must have been really difficult.
It was. And then, and I look at it, and, I think at that point, okay. And I think I had said, it's fairly certain I was going to be dead by 40 and all of this. So, and at the same time, when I was making all my irrational decisions, again, I made changes at work, my retirement, I cut everything except they give a $10 match, a week. I'm all right, here's $10, gets free money. But I'm I'm going to enjoy the money now because I'm going to be dead by 40. So what's the point in all this? So I'm now watching that with my brother. And again, his symptoms has started to progress. And it got to the point he did have to go into a nursing home. Which is pretty much where he lived out the rest of his life. But from AMN to ALD to that point, I mean, literally, I would say probably a year and a half from nothing to that. It went fast. Like, and again, he lived in the nursing home, and just the symptoms, like, again, he just pretty much, I mean, he knew, we go see him, and he knew we were there, but it was just, yeah, it was hard to see, to say the least. Knowing everything that I knew, I felt like I was going to be dead by 40. And then I'm going through this with my brother. It was a lot. And again,
Yeah.
I still at this point kind of coped with it. And to go back to this wee bit tidbit, this is where the symptoms started going. And his fiance Megan, she had gone to school with someone who was actually working in Dr. Eichler in the clinic doing, the research coordinators, all that. So he then got referred to go see Dr. Eichler. And at that point they had did some experimental testing and stuff just to see, but they did an MRI and he had a very large lesion, in his brain. And there was just there was pretty much nothing that they could do. And they tried, but, they ended up sending him home. And then we progressed basically into the nursing home. And at the same time, I'm like, okay. So then I started to go see Dr. Eichler and give a shout out to Katie Becker. You're probably watching this. Again, she knew I was just like, I'm going to be dead by 40, the vibes. And she told me, and she still says she doesn't believe that it meant that big of an impact to me, but it did. She told me to get my head out of the sand. And it did. I did get my head out of the sand. I came home. And this is where I got connected to community, and I got connected with ALD Connect. Shout out, and I found the community. I was like, wow, I'm seeing all these guys. There's guys that are 60s, 70, they're still living. They're living with this, and it kind of opens up, and you learn. At that point, I learned a lot more. I'm like, okay, So at that point, I kind of got out of that, but when my brother did pass, again, he passed, I think it was 2 weeks before his 40th birthday. And it was 2 weeks. So, and here I am, I'm still trying to figure this all out at the same time. So, but part of me still had the vibes that, okay, I'm going to be dead by 40. So, that really didn't, that never left. So I still was living kind of crazy. Because I'm like, I was happy to find community and, seeing other people, but I'm like, the part of me was cerebral ALD is still in the back of my head.
Right.
I was getting polarized at that point.
I mean, it makes sense when you see a family member suffer like that and you have the same diagnosis. Why would you think yours would go differently, right?
Exactly. We didn't know, and they're still trying to figure that out. Who's gonna, why does that happen,
Yeah, I'm so sorry about your brother.
Well, yeah, and I talked about this before, and I still kind of feel like a piece of crap about it, literally at the same time. And when he passed, that was such my brain was like, I don't think I officially ever officially mourned his passing, which makes I feel like crap about that. But it was it was just too much for me. I think I'm still trying to figure this all out in my life, and this is happening, and I'm just like,
it's extreme overwhelm.
It is.
I mean,
so
much to process.
Yeah. So let's now go to my brother Derek again, who's about a year or two younger than Rod. So he's starting to get this. I mean, he didn't even have so much AMN symptoms, but his thinking, and it was a rational thinking. He was a truck driver. And he plowed into the back of a car. Thank God no one was hurt or anything. But it was just his think process was whatever, it's fine. And that was starting to go. And I think, when Rod did pass, I always remembered his funeral, and he was just, he was just talking to everybody, but not in a way you probably talk to someone at a funeral, but he was starting to lose that. And so then at that point, again, he had went to a neurologist locally who told him he had schmutz on his brain. Schmutz, not white matter, schmutz. And they told him, you have it, but you don't have it that bad. I'm like, but I don't think they knew about anything about ALD. Did they Google it? I don't even know if they Googled it. So we're living. And again, he still lived a couple jobs here and there until he finally, it got to the point where he was blowing money left and right. And he's like, he asked me for money to bail him out, to pay his rent. I'm like, fine, I will, but you're going to sign me over. I'll be your rep payee because at this point he went on his disability Social Security because he just couldn't work anymore with his thinking. And so I became his rep payee so I could pay his bills. I gave him his money, and I paid his bills and got his life for the most part back around, but he was all over the place. And, I don't need to go too much of that, but yeah. And then there's me.
So he is in his 30s now? Your brother, or is he?
No, he's 46.
Derek's 46.
Derek's 46 now. I'm 40. Okay. Oh, yeah, he's about 5 years older than me. So I think Ron was like 6, if I do the maths, give or take.
Okay. Just wanted to, yeah. Sorry. Let's go to you, Ken.
And then we're going back to me now. So Derek's living, he's doing. And then I'm going, and I'm still thinking I'm going to be dead by 40. And then guess what? I turned 40. I didn't die. That was a big, people always, they go, oh, I'm over the hill. That's their issue. Mine was more of like a celebration. I'm not dead. I didn't die. And even before this, not going to say the industry, but like in the group, I reached out to all my peoples, and we have a Facebook group, we have our monthly calls with ALD Connect. So, but everyone was kind of just like, well, you make it till 40, you're good. And that, we've learned that that's not the truth, really, at the end of the day. It's different for everybody, but so, my mind.
For you, that's a big deal.
It was a big deal, but my mind thinking that changed. And, I kind of got away from that. I'm not going to be dead. I became an adult again, and I was much more careful with my spending, and I'm digging myself out of my hole that I created. But, that's life. That was ALD. That was AMN. So, and again, till here, and then I'll go back to Derek. He, again, it's been about a month now, but it was in a living situation. He got evicted. So then my parents took him to the doctor, and because we think at this point, I'm like, he should be either in a care home or group home.
Because the cerebral has progressed.
Yeah, because the cerebral progressed, but they were shooting at the time. They went to the doctor, hopefully to get another MRI, but nobody pushed for that, so we did it. So, but we brought it up a couple times before, but I don't think he wanted to know. He just wants to live his life and let it, a lot of people, some people choose it like that. So he lived, and again, he's moved to the nursing home now because the doctor said, well, he's got a lot of issues with bladder, bowel, and because his AMN symptoms did catch up. My symptoms were worse than his. Which was interesting. While he's dealing with cerebral ALT, he's walking more than I was, which was just it was wild. But they've since caught up to him, and I think I can beat him in a rollator race. But but I didn't really go into all that. But again, I used walking aids. I went from a cane to leg braces to a walker. When I broke my leg, I was like, I got a walker. I'm like, this is amazing. And I've since transitioned to that, and it really has let me live a fairly quality life, all things considered. But yeah, there's a lot. There's so much. But if you have any other questions, you definitely
so much. Well, I'm just wondering now, what is your healthcare look like? What does your monitoring look like? Who do you see for specialists? Who do you see locally? Do you travel?
Locally? No. That my original neurologist and an endocrinologist was an hour away. They left. I scared them away, apparently. They both left the hospital they were working for. And at the time, they're like, you're going to Mass General to see Dr. Eichler, which I still had. So, you're fine. Which is kind of weird, though. I have nobody local really at all, except my general practitioner, which she knows more about than I think, because she actually did the research. And which is good, but I don't see her much for that, doing, stumbling, falling, breaking legs. I'm like, we go to her, but yeah. So, but otherwise, again, I go once a year to see Dr. Eichler, and I have an endocrinologist there. I had
to get an MRI?
To get an MRI every
once
year.
Once a year? Okay, yep. Good.
And once a year MRI. And I had his urologist, went to see him, but at the time I just didn't know. Again, this will be coming down in future episodes when we get into more below the belt topics.
Below the belt.
Below the belt, we're doing it. But he had told me at the time, I had an overactive bladder. And I'm like, I was having issues starting to pee. So I was just like this, and he put me on a drug, and like, I don't know if it did anything. And I'm just like, I honestly haven't been back. I probably should. If anything, I would probably to see a local urologist, because again, it's Boston. I mean, it's about a 6-hour drive for me. So it's just like, it's not super convenient, and trying to squeeze everything into just a couple days, it can be tough, but
yeah. So let's talk about symptoms.
Yeah.
So you use a rollator because of gait and balance.
Yes. Gait balance. Yeah. Right. And then other symptoms. Okay. Again, this was coming to erectile dysfunction. Everybody, we're gonna go. Wow. We're gonna go into that's a future episode as well, because we're definitely going into that. But and again, we had talked about this, but there are drugs for that. They are, Cialis, Viagra, and they'll do it for you, but due to the progression of the disease, like the nerves have been, it's just not the same, as we said. It's kind of like you're a human sex toy. But again, let's not go into deep. But this is no limits. You're just basically at that point.
No limits. Just getting right to it.
You feel used, Christy. You feel used. But that bladder, I'm thankful for bladder. I'm fairly good bladder control, but with a lot of patients will say when you just start getting closer to the bathroom, you gotta go. And a lot of times you won't make it there. It's not like, thankfully, it's not full blown, like totally, disaster, but it's just like, okay, this is inconvenient. And bowel is a whole nother story. But yeah, there's that issues, which again, future episodes. So make sure you click the subscribe button for these future episodes, because we're gonna go there. Yep. But that was a lot in a short period of time, but I think I got to draw that out more, because again, I've done other past talks. I'm like, I feel like I really got to jam it in there. So that was fun. It was fun. So that's me.
Thanks so much for sharing your story.
I'm an AMN patient over here. Now we have Christy, and we are going to learn about Christy now.
All right. So I live in Massachusetts with my little family, and I learned about adrenoleukodystrophy when my son was born in 2020. Let's see if we can pull up these pics. That first pic. See if we can get it.
I can get it. I can put it up.
You can, perfect. So yeah, my son was born on 11/11/2020. Isn't that a cool birthday?
Yeah,
I think it's pretty cool. So he was, perfectly healthy pregnancy, all of that. And then, a few days after he was born, our pediatrician called and said he was flagged on a newborn screen test. I really didn't know what that meant. I had not really, I knew they did a heel prick, test when he was born, but I didn't really understand what it was for. Honestly, I was just trying to keep my child alive, right? So then, a good week later, she called me and said she was referring me to Bay State Genetics, where, she put me in touch with a geneticist, and I had a telehealth call with her, and, she let me and my husband know that our son had adrenoleukodystrophy, and, which sounds so scary, I have to say. This was during COVID. It was telehealth. I was like, can you write it down? So she wrote it down on a Post-it and like held it up to the screen. And I was just like crying and writing it down, and really panicked after that phone call because, you know, you hear this diagnosis, you don't know what it is. You know, what I heard was that it came from me, which I was like, what are you talking about? I'm healthy. And then she told us all the worst case scenarios, pretty much. It was not a hopeful conversation at all. So, you know, she told us not to Google it. What did we do? We Googled it, right? And I talked to a lot of newborn screening families, and we all do the same thing. We Google, and you see the MRI scans, and you hear the stories of the boys who passed away, and it's so devastating to read about the disease. Times when there weren't treatments, and times when there was so much less hope than I think there is now in the community. But so my son was diagnosed, went down this rabbit hole, spiraling out of control. I call it the diagnosis funk. That is what I've sort of coined, this time of spiraling and like learning this new language of, all these new words. It's like X-linked, adrenoleukodystrophy, gene therapy, bone marrow transplant, ABCD1 gene, very long chain fatty acids. It's like the list goes on, right? All of the words sort of associated with the disease. I was just sort of like, it was in my head, like going through my head, and I was just kind of spiraling out of control. My poor husband said to me, what's going on? Like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, my soul is being eaten. I just like, that's the way I felt. Like my soul was being like ripped out of my body and chewed by the devil. But yeah, so the diagnosis funk was not fun. We learned that my daughter had the genetic mutation. We learned that I had the genetic mutation. So that was scary, but it seemed much more serious for boys. So I luckily in my Googling came across ALD Connect and some other fabulous organizations. And I hopped on a community call. And man, those women just picked me right up off the floor. I would show up crying and holding my tiny baby. And they were like, he's going to be okay. He's going to be okay. And so that really helped me. And I started to lean into just other families, and I feel so privileged that we knew when my son was a newborn, and also that there was a community, because I feel like that's fairly recent that people with ALD started to come together and lean on each other, and I feel so lucky to be a part of that. So yep, there's my son when he was a couple of months old, wearing his Celtics jersey, and there he is today. I took that picture today. He is on the 4 and 5-year-old basketball team, loves it. He's super healthy. He does have adrenal insufficiency, which was detected really before any symptoms. So his blood work showed that he was, starting to go towards an unhealthy level of ACTH, and his cortisol really wasn't responding. And we did a stress test, and lo and behold, he has adrenal insufficiency. But lucky for us, we caught it before any symptoms. So he's on hydrocortisone 3 times a day, super healthy, running around. You would never know this child has anything, lurking. So the interesting piece for me was trying to understand sort of my family tree and how this, if it's genetic, where the heck did it come from? Yeah. And So I asked my siblings to get tested. I'm one of 5. I'm the youngest, the funniest, the best looking of the bunch. And nobody else tested positive for ALD. So I have 3 brothers, a sister. Nobody else tested positive. And my dad also got tested. He's in his 80s now. He tested negative. So my mother passed away in 2012. That's her with one of my nephews. And we think it came from her just because when we talk about some of her physical, ailments, they correlate with, some of the testing on women with ALD. So we think it came from her, but we'll never know. One of her siblings, she's one of 7. So big family. And one of her siblings got tested, and we thought for sure, he might have it because he has a number of health issues, but he does not have ALD. He tested negative. So the other siblings, some are deceased, some are, quite elderly, and they just didn't get tested. So I have talked to some cousins, but we don't know of any other ALD in the family. So kind of interesting. And then I just wanted to show a family picture because, I made my poor husband, I made him go for professional photos this fall. And he was like, come on. But I love it. I love my family photos.
Absolutely.
So that was sort of how our diagnosis happened. And I think like many moms, I can stop presenting this now. How do I do this? Remove from stage. Okay. Like many moms in the community, we're so focused on our kids that we sort of neglect ourselves and our own health. I definitely find myself in that category of, focusing on my child's 6-month MRIs and his daily medicine and, communicating with his school and things like that. But I focus less on myself. But I think, as I, when I really think about myself and like this time of year too, I start to set goals, right? What am I going to do in 2026?
New year, new year.
Right? I think, I do have symptoms and, they include gait and balance issues. They include bladder and bowel dysfunction. I love how the doctors say that. Bladder and bowel dysfunction.
He told me that when they were, I'm like, and then I think at one point they're like, oh, you're going to get constipation. I had none of that until I finally got out to finally talk to people. Like, oh, okay, so it is more than that. So, yeah. That's why we're going to get it out there, because I think even some doctors are just getting into it. They're trying to learn that we got things to tell you.
Right. It's like the nice way of putting it, right? Dysfunction.
Yeah.
But I will share, like the bladder dysfunction. It's interesting because sometimes I'm like, are these just regular health issues with getting old? I'm an old mom. I didn't mention, you mentioned your age right away. I did not, but it wasn't intentional. I'm 46 and, I had my kids later in life and, I always think it's interesting when we talk about symptom onset and age of onset, right? And I had issues with bladder when I was 12. And, whenever I see doctors present, they say, oh, your 30s or 40s, for women, the onset is much later for many things. But I'm like, no. And I've talked to a few other women. I'd be curious. Let's do some new surveys. It wasn't so much of an urgency issue as it was like I had a friend who would make me laugh. And we would just it was like I would just
uncontrolled
pee my pants out of control. and this would happen through high school. He still, whenever I see him, he makes me laugh. So it's particular to this friend, but also like I just started noticing, like, yeah, if I would laugh really hard, I'd have to go pee. I still do. And it's just progressively gotten worse. But it started when I was 12. So yeah, I'd be interested to know, like, is that just like, is that related to ALD at all? Or was that something else? I have no idea.
Put it in the comments down below, ladies, if you can relate.
I'd love to hear from others.
Yeah. So I wanted to go back to your diagnosis. Obviously we know about the son, but then when you found out and then, you gave it to your son, was that impactful for you? Like,
that's a good question.
Or did you have so much going on with it all, trying to figure it all out that it didn't hit you like that? Or like,
yeah, I mean, I think at the time, I got the results back and it said carrier too, which is, a no word in the ALD community. We do not call women carriers. No. But at the time, it wasn't contextualized for me at all. It was like, you're a carrier, so you carry the gene, but it wasn't like, oh, you're going to be impacted by it.
Yeah.
So I think, and the reason why I got my daughter tested, honestly, first of all, it's an easy test, right? It was like a mouth swab kit that the geneticist group sent me. But I really just wanted to know if she could potentially be an HLA match for my son. Yeah. So it was a little bit like indirect, like it wasn't an HLA test, it was an ALD test. Yeah. But I was like, I assumed that if she had ALD, she couldn't then be a bone marrow match. It was not correct the way I was thinking necessarily, but that was how I was thinking at that time. So I was like, okay, I'm a carrier, but I didn't really understand the scope of what women manage.
Yeah, but did you feel, was there any guilt? Because I know a lot.
Oh God, yeah. Yes. Thank you for just calling it what it is. Yes, thank you. Yes. I was like so horrified that I had passed this on unknowingly. And when you think about it rationally, it's like, of course, I didn't know I was passing this on to my son. And right. I think the interesting thing is, like, I had IVF, and so I thought I had all the genetic testing done, right? And ALD didn't come up.
That's a good. So you had IVF.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's wild, because it's not obviously newborn screening and the IVF. That's different. So they didn't pick it up there.
Yeah, so interesting. So yeah, it wasn't picked up, and I'm strangely grateful it wasn't, because I don't know what choices I would have made like my son is
totally
such a special little joy in my life, and I'm like big joy in my life, but little guy. Yeah. But I think, would I have made a different decision? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Wow. Huh. That's very interesting. But you made the right decision. Even though you didn't have a choice, you still made the right decision.
I didn't have a choice. But yes, I definitely felt guilt for a long time. Yeah. Actually, I feel lucky again that we were referred to Dr. Eichler, and he's just like such a great person to talk to, because he's like, no, there's nobody to blame here, and because I was like, oh, I blame my mother, haha. He's like, no, don't blame your mother, don't blame yourself, there's nobody to blame, this is not so that was helpful for me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
but I also, something we both talked about, I think, is like the mental health aspect of things, right? Yeah. The guilt, the spiraling, the worry that, using alcohol to cope or other things. And yeah, I guess, like, what advice would you give to somebody who is newly diagnosed and leaning towards the spiral or in the spiral?
No, yeah, no. Now that I know so much now, no, I would be like, no, you need to talk to people, because odds are they're going in the spiral by Googling it probably, or if they have a very untrained, neurologist or physician that's giving them just this, they don't give them anything else. And again, it's such a rare disease. I don't not fault them exactly, but it's just like, yeah, like I wish the internet could be retrained, to Google could be retrained just to go that, it's not. I think I made it was one of my slug lines on another thing. I said, it's not the end, it's only the beginning. That was pretty deep. Like, it is only the beginning, because really it is. It's like you're kind of, you pick up, you're modifying life. It's like you're learning how to walk again. It's like you're a child again, you're learning how to walk, and and as you go. But again, like my brother, when I talk to him, like with this cerebral, it's like sometimes it's like you're talking to like a child, like an 8-year-old or something. Like, it's just like, it's kind of like, but that's, it's how it goes. But we go down many rabbit holes. Me and Christy go down many rabbit holes. We can do it.
No, oh my gosh.
But, so you'll learn about us. Oh goodness, I must have an Amazon delivery here. I'll get to that. But the cool thing about this is you now know us both, and we are now going to be bringing on other ALD patients, caregivers. We're not sure where we're drawing the line yet, but we have our very first patient, which happens to be the one and only Aaron Gardner from outside. Aaron, I threw it at him. I'm like, you want to be the first guest? And he said yes. So he will be joining us in 2 weeks for that episode. We're going to try to space these episodes out about every 2 weeks, just to give us time for filming and stuff. But yeah, we're going to hopefully get a whole bunch of other ALD patients in there, so we can get everyone's voice out there, so you can see every aspect and angle of the disease. So yeah.
Right. I think, there's so many things we all have in common, but there's so many like differences as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that'd be cool just to get it kind of all out there in one spot. Again, if you've ever been to the ALD Connect annual meetings, they always have like a patient panel, which is cool. You get it, but it's just like, you're only getting like a couple of them. And then if you go every other year, you kind of start putting bits and pieces together. But we're throwing this out on the internet. And again, we originally started as a podcast. I can extract the audio, and I may try to get into podcast format and get on Spotify, but I'm slowly learning about that. So I'm a YouTube guy from the start. So we do it here first.
That's good. And
So
people can see our beautiful faces.
And you get to see our beautiful faces, and again, our future guests as well. You get to see ALD. I mean, in this case, you're going to get to see 3 people with ALD on the screen at one time.
Right. What a treat!
And it will be a great treat. It's not a pleasure, like we started this episode. So, have anything to end it for this first episode? It's awesome, we did it. We said we're going to do it, and then people kept coming in. They're like, are you really going to do it? I'm like, yes, we're doing it. It needs to be done. So,
yeah. I mean, don't forget to subscribe. Share this episode with the people you love.
Yes, subscribe and share. Absolutely. It'd be cool. And I mean, again, we can go, like live streaming, and this can go crazy, but we'll see where it goes. So, but I want to thank you so much for tuning and watching, if you watched it all the way to the end, and we'll see you on the next episode.
That's right. Take care, everybody.
Yes. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.